Thank you so much for tuning in to the Master Connector Show. We are bringing Michelle Dickinson to you today. We're going to be talking about compassion leads to real change in the workplace, your workplace, other people's workplace. Let's get into it. We'll be right back after our intro video.
Steve Spiro, you're a mentor, you're a consultant, you're a business owner, but most importantly, you're a host of your own show and you're also a master connector.
Steve Spiro is one of my idols, and I love listening to everything that he does. He's such a dynamic individual.
Some of the topics I really enjoy speaking on is how to really connect, whether it be in person or through social media. I love to lead with my weaknesses. I lead with, my vulnerabilities. It's fine because I'm okay with who I am. Number two is how to go from being inward focused, self-focused, into others focused. Being willing to give and go out there and look to serve. That will attract the right things. Another one is on leveraging LinkedIn to really grow your business. You could reach a lot more people. You could broadcast a message to people that actually consented to want to know you. And then lastly, overcoming big obstacles. I love sharing. I was a shy, introverted kid, picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic, really in a dark place. I was really in a box, Michelle, and I've been able to break out of that box. And so I love being able to inspire people and really help them. So the Master Connector was born. The world is my networking event. Right? I meet people all the time. My goal is to meet 3 strangers every single day.
Steve is open to meeting you. You should set up a face-to-face with Steve. One little conversation can really change your life. All right, I want to shout out Chris Kane checking in. Make sure you're letting us know where you're tuning in from in the chat. We want your questions. We want your insight. When you get into the comments in the show, when you network with others, you are being a master connector and you are making this a better show. Over to my man, Steve Spiro from Stamford, Connecticut.
Appreciate you, Cameron. So I've heard that to really know what someone is feeling and to really know, why they are the way they are, you really would have to live the life that they've had as them, right? Think about it. If you lived exactly as they have experienced whatever they went through, do you think you'd be any different? So, if you have parents, right, and you grew up, particular parents, right, and you grew up with their siblings, right, you look like they did, and good or not so good, right? In the environment that they grew up in, right? If it was inner city, whatever, right? With the physical or mental limitations that they were born with, throughout all the unfortunate circumstances, whatever they dealt with, right? Would you be any different? Just something to ponder, right? So we all, can use a little more compassion, a little more empathy. I know for me, I don't want to be judged, because if I judge, then people have the right to judge me. Right? And I'm far from perfect, that's for sure. So the workplace is a microcosm of life and a family, right? And until recently, most of us, almost all of the time, really spent more time with our coworkers than our family. What if we changed the culture at work or in life to one of compassion, love, tolerance, empathy, and understanding? Imagine what a real change that could lead to. So today we're going to take a deep dive into how compassion can lead to real change in the workplace. Super excited for Cameron. So here's what I want you to do, viewers. If you're ready, I want you to type in the word ready right now. If you're ready for Cameron to bring up our next speaker, go ahead and type that right now. R-E-A-D-Y, however you spell ready. Cameron, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Absolutely. Michelle E. Dickinson, thank you for being with us today. Michelle Dickinson is a workplace mental health strategist and passionate mental health advocate. She is also a TEDx speaker and a published author of a memoir entitled Breaking Into My Life. Michelle goes first and sees herself as the bridge that helps people get comfortable with their mental health so that they reach out and get the support they need before they hit a crisis. She makes it okay to not be okay and thrives on making a real difference in the lives of others. especially around their well-being. After years of playing the role of child caregiver to her bipolar mother, Michelle embarked on her own healing journey of self-discovery. She went on to spend years working to eradicate the mental health stigma within her own workplace by elevating empathy and compassion, causing more open conversations and leading real change in how mental illness is understood. She was instrumental in building the largest and fastest growing mental health employee resource group while at her Fortune 500 company. She also knows firsthand what it feels like to struggle with a mental illness after experiencing her own depression due to her divorce. This has provided her with a rich perspective. Michelle's out to do her part to eliminate the stigma by normalizing the mental well-being conversation within the workplace and beyond. She partners with innovative leaders to bring them her psychological resilience programs and mental health strategies to recenter employees and cultivates cultures of compassion. Her signature resilience webinar has made a positive impact on thousands of employees during COVID-19. Please welcome to the show, the daring Michelle E. Dickinson.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like that was quite the introduction, and your energy is outstanding. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I just want to shout out some folks in the audience that are excited that you're here, Michelle. We got Dr. Nupi Aurora in the house. Chris Kane is ready. Dr. Nupi is ready. Dr. Nupi is saying, woo! We are ready. Go ahead, Steve.
Absolutely. We are definitely ready for sure. So if you are ready for the next, if you're excited for the first question, we're going to get Michelle talking now. So we want you to write the word X, just X for excited. Just type in X and we'll get going and jump into some of these questions. So I know hopefully, and I believe our viewers are amazing. So they did some probably digging on you, and hopefully they got a chance, like I did, to see your TEDx talk and some of the other stuff online about you. But yeah, you spoke about having a bipolar mom. I know Cameron mentioned in your intro. Can you tell us a little bit of your story and kind of how that affected you and what you did to leverage that in a positive way and made you who you are today?
Thank you for asking. Yeah. My mom had the traditional bipolar disorder, rapid cycling, mania, depression. And I often had to play the role of the caregiver because my father worked and he was the primary breadwinner. So it meant being around my mom and really, caring for her, being the stability when she needed someone to be with her. Because there were moments when she was not sick enough to be hospitalized, but not safe enough to be left alone. So a lot of that came with me staying home from school, doing what I needed to care for her. And it taught me a lot. It taught me, what does it look like to love someone who struggles, and how does this impact me as someone who was a caregiver? It taught me compassion for seeing her pain and wanting to do something about it, but not being able to. So it, in essence, shaped me into the woman that I became today, and lit a fire in me to do more about it,
That's awesome. Yeah. And you're doing some amazing work for sure. So, obviously that had an impact, obviously in your professional life, personal life, professional life, and you've kind of pivoted from that personal stuff into how it affects, your, the workplace and so forth. So, can you tell our audience, and by the way, audience, viewers, now's your time to participate again. So if you're ready for the next question, I want you to hit number 2 for the second question. Just type in 2 right now. But the audience wants to know, right? Obviously, you've gone through some stuff, and I mentioned in my intro, there's been a lot of, we all have our challenges, we all have our issues, and sometimes it's very easy for us to kind of get a little bit jaded, a little bit like, well, why does this person act that way? And we didn't know what they went through, right? In your case, bipolar mom. I remember you in your TEDx talk, you talked about how when you came home, you didn't know what version of your mom you were going to get, and you were late, and she was like crazy, and in another day she was like normal. And I think we've all had bosses like that too, right? And we have coworkers that are like that, right? So So what are some of the ways in which you cultivate compassion at the work, at work? How would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all starts with what you just said. Like, we never know what people are dealing with. We never know what people are dealing with. And so, oftentimes we're so focused on deliverables, we're so focused on, teamwork and trying to get things done, that we step over if someone doesn't seem to be themselves. And I think that when we can take a step back and go, this person is a person before they're my colleague, before they're an employee. Maybe they're struggling with something and maybe no one's checking on them. Maybe if I just say to them, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? You don't seem to be yourself, or the person that I know you to be, right? So I think it starts with being curious and going back to our humanness. I say this all the time. Let's just go back to our humanness. We all have hearts. We all have, sort of an inner sense that something might not be, quite right. So I think it's about really recognizing that people are people before they're employees, and be more curious about how our colleagues are doing. If, we're spending so much time with them, we should be looking out for one another.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. And I think there's something to be said about just being human. And I think, I think COVID has helped a little bit, because I know I've been much more understanding now. If I call, or somebody's calling me or I'm calling them, and I hear a baby crying in the background, and we know that people are dealing with remote work situations and childcare situations, and I think there's a little bit more empathy and compassion on that perspective. But we could always do better, for sure. And I think also I'd love to touch on this next question. So audience, viewers, if you're ready, we're going to kind of jump into that third question here for Michelle, because she's awesome, and we want to hear what she has to say. So type in 3 if you're ready for the next question, the third question coming. But the question is, what do you need to do to be the change agent at your work, right? I think a lot of times we think it's the management, it's leadership, it's the owner, it's the boss that's going to do it. But what do we need to do? What can we do to be that change agent?
I get this question all the time, and people go, but my culture, I don't feel comfortable going first. I don't feel comfortable disclosing. I don't work in an organization where the culture is such that we're openly talking about our stuff, our mental illness, or our mental health challenges. So I get that. But here's what you could do. You could initiate a conversation about a celebrity who went first. You could just be starting a conversation that wasn't going to happen without you, about the topic of emotional well-being, about like what you do to preserve your health. What are you doing every day? Are you making sure you get that run in? Are you leading by example? Are you modeling good mental health hygiene to those around you? Are you hitting up your colleagues at 9, 10 o'clock at night, even though you say you don't want a response, but still they're seeing that, and that message, that undertone is quite the opposite. So I think there's a lot of little things we can do when we want to condition the environment to be more understanding and more conscientious about our emotional well-being.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. It's, I'm one of my favorite authors is an author, John Maxwell, and he does a lot on leadership. And he talks about, that you lead, and there's other great authors that have talked about how you lead. You lead not only down, but you lead up, and you lead across horizontally, right? And so you have an influence on everybody around you, not just who you quote unquote manage or lead as well. So yeah, we have influence. And I love what you said about kind of talking third person, so to speak. I love doing that. And I love having the ability, if I have a point I want to make, I'm not going to say, you do this, you do that, you do this, but I say, it's interesting. I was talking to somebody about, a challenge I was dealing with at work, or recently dealing with somebody, and it could be that person that you're speaking to, but you're just keeping it in the third person and saying, I know that they meant well about it, but I was struggling with this, and somebody made a suggestion, and this is the perspective that I need to take, and so when you go that third person route, tell a little bit of a story. And I love what you said about, maybe using someone in the spotlight, right? A famous actor or whatever, because we all deal with that stuff, right? It's a great way to kind of do it. So appreciate your perspective on that. It's awesome. So we're gonna jump into that question 4 here, and we're rolling along really nicely. So obviously, so audience, viewers, ready? Community, our amazing community we have here. We love you. We appreciate you. If you're ready, let's type in number 4 for the next question for Michelle that we want to ask her about. And this is a good one, and I know you're big on this one, Michelle, which is how do you cultivate trust? And I know that can it's not just work wise, it's relational, right? But I know for me, trust, number one, being accountable, number one, being somebody who is a man or woman of the word. Number two is being transparent, and being authentic. Those are some clues that I like to live by. Am I perfect? Of course not. But I'm curious your perspective on how do you cultivate trust?
Yes. And what you said is exactly the starting point. It's about being authentic, being a little bit vulnerable, being courageous. But, if we want to create cultures of compassion, that takes something. That takes ongoing investment in relationships and, being curious about how people are doing in and outside of work. I think that that's the key part here. If we want an employee to feel comfortable and confident reaching out to us when they need a mental health day, or if they're struggling with something personal, we have to cultivate that trust as a garden, ongoing, all the time. What are we doing to build that relationship so it's strong enough so that our people trust us enough to say, hey, I just need to take a minute, or I need to take off a day and just go recharge myself. But that doesn't come overnight. That comes with investment, and it's mutual. It's both employee and leader. They have to work on that. It has to be something that's a priority. Otherwise, they're never going to disclose, or it's just a bad recipe for people who are struggling, because then they'll continue to struggle in silence and suffer.
Let me just throw in here, because we have great comment from Dr. Aurora. Trust means honesty, authenticity, compassion, radical candor. And I just want to bring up this point because I know both Steve and I don't know about you, Michelle, but I know for us, we're constantly on the phone, on video calls with folks. And it's really evident when somebody doesn't want to share. And so when you have a leader that doesn't want to share, they don't want to open up, they aren't interested in giving you any of themselves, it makes it really difficult for you to want to share of yourself, right? It's that challenge. And so it's hard to be compassionate with somebody that just doesn't seem like they're open to being, like they're not going to give of themselves at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's interesting. What I would say to that is, like, the training I do for leaders is the first thing we do is we have them look in the mirror with what is their relationship to mental health, right? Because oftentimes leaders who occur that way might not have the best relationship to their own mental health. And that screams an opportunity, For me, I remember working in my corporate job, and I disclosed that I was diagnosed with depression when I was going through my divorce. And it was met with zero empathy and compassion. And at first I was annoyed. And then I stopped and I stepped back and I said, well, wow, I wonder what her relationship to her own mental illness or mental health is, if she's ever had a mental illness. So I think we also have to give them grace, in those instances. If they're not willing to share, if they're not willing to be authentic, maybe there's something, an opportunity for them to go within. But
it's great. It's great. And, in a previous life, I'm a cat, one of my 9 lives that I've had, I was in advertising for many years. And one of the things that we did a lot was brainstorming sessions. And they taught us that no idea is a bad idea. Right. But that was hard because there was still people that were like, well, that idea wasn't. And so I think, to Cameron's point, a lot of times people have a tendency to not want to open up and share. I will say this. One thing that I found is, and we talked culture before, is when you create a culture of sort of this, I know there's a growth mindset and there's a fixed mindset, the book Mindset, right? Yeah. One of our favorite books that we'd like to speak about. If you kind of cultivate that, or kind of create a culture of that growth mindset, where it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to say something. You're not going to get your head bit off about it because you threw out an idea, or you tried something. I remember when I was finally in a leadership role in the advertising world, and I had a young lady I was mentoring. She worked for me, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to make a mistake. I'm so." I said, "Listen, it's okay. We learn from our mistakes. As long as you're not going to do the same mistake over and over and over again, you have the ability to now just to learn from it, right? So you either you win or you learn, right? You don't win or lose. It's not that sort of defined, So yeah, I think it's important for just to chime in on my perspective is to create that culture of it's okay to fail. It's okay to not make mistakes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The opposite of that is a fear laden environment, right? So you're absolutely right about that.
Let me lay down the devil's advocate piece to this, because I think compassion and empathy, we're all on the same page here. I think we got some fans of compassion and empathy in the comment section. But for those employers out there, for those managers out there, what's the line, right? Because I heard Steve say it, and I say it in the office too. I've made every mistake that you're going to make, and I've made it 20 times. So I would be very hypocritical to judge you for making the mistake the first couple times you make it, because I've made it plenty of times. But where's that line, and how do you sort of divide, put that into place in the work? We're compassionate, but obviously we want to get things done. Cause I think people sort of go to that, well, I just can't pay somebody to make mistakes on my, on my time. What's that line? How do you define that? How do you train managers to sort of make sure that they're being compassionate, empathetic, but they understand that there's the money line behind this as well, that it makes sense to do it that way?
I think if you want the best out of your employees, you have to make it a priority that compassion and empathy and leading in a way that you're breeding trust, recognizing those things in place will equal a employee who does produce, who does do the work, right? Like people forget. It's like, well, I got to balance that. But you know what? Like it's been proven if an employee feels cared for, feels heard, feels understood, is supported, you're going to get the best out of them. And I think that we have to remember that, the little bit of extra investment is going to pay off in having them contribute to the capacity that you want them to.
Love that. It's great. That's awesome. Yeah. So we're gonna jump into another question here, and so you guessed it, audience, viewers, community. We want you to type in 5 if you're ready for the next question, because we are on a roll here. But this has been phenomenal, Michelle. You're an amazing asset to the show, or to our community. I'm hoping everybody reaches out to you and connects with you and really make sure they watch your TEDx, make sure they watch some of your content, go to your website and so forth. But you mentioned, and kind of Cameron, I don't know if Cameron was probably teeing this next question up before, but the next question, and again, type in 5 if you haven't yet already, but we'd like you to tell us your strategy to have a leader go first in sharing their struggles. And I'm a big, Cameron knows this, Cameron also, we're big believers on, one of our pillars of the show is overcoming struggles or obstacles. Mm-hmm. So we love this kind of topic. We love the ability to be vulnerable and share on that. So love to hear what your thoughts behind it are, how maybe give us some examples on how it's actually helped, recreate the culture at some of the office, the companies that you've worked with.
Yeah. And that's such a great question. And I think we have to first pause and recognize that, cultures don't change overnight. We can't just expect, to make these changes on a dime and think everything's going to be okay. I think what is so powerful is when leaders do go first, because it shows that they've been able to navigate something and they came out the other side, and that represents hope. And I think what we need to be thinking about is what's the benefit of telling a story, the ripple effect that it can cause, the normalizing of this whole, it's okay to have a high level job and to have navigated something, and life is going to come at us, right? And if you can see that one of the most senior level people in your organization has too been where you are and is okay now, that is such a huge beacon of light and hope. So, it does take something though. It takes it takes something to go first, but I would also say it's leaders' responsibility to go first. If they really want to, and if they're really committed to creating a culture of compassion, they already have the, I guess the fact that they're famous because of who they are in the organization. So they can leverage that to make a greater impact. And, I think it's so important that they do go first.
It's awesome. That's great. It's great stuff. Cameron, you're muted, sir.
Thank you. Just to jump in on that, I think that, I lived that. I read Danny Mayer's Setting the Table. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, Michelle, but it's, I'm a hospitality guy, so that was a book that interests me, but it's right up your alley in terms of leadership. So if anybody's listening that wants to do it, because it's a great book, whether you're in hospitality or not, but Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. He's the guy that founded Shake Shack as well as Union Square Events, all that jazz. And just that ability for a leader to really jump in and be that person that is the star of the organization, that leads by example, that doesn't do one thing and then say, do as I say, not as I do. So important. I believe it in my organization. I try to be that and live that, understanding that, I'm human and give myself that grace as well, but try to build that up in the people that are underneath me. So I want to say I appreciated that, because I think that's something that's so important. If you're trying to build an organization, if you're a solopreneur right now, that first hire and how you deal with that and how you move that forward, thinking about the future is so important to the lifeblood, to the people that are going to actually grow your organization.
Cameron, I thought you were going to ask, there's another book called Leaders Eat Last. So
yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about that when you were talking.
And I got to pick that up, because I heard you say that before, and I'm, literally on events. I'm guilty anytime I'm eating before, any other staff, because I'm like, I don't want to have that look, that presentation that, somehow I'm better than, right? I'm here to serve my people. Right. And so I think that's a great way to show people that you're there to serve them. And people really feel that, right? When you do that, that means if I want to eat, I better get you all fed. And I think that's, as a leader, you're providing those tools, you're providing those resources, you're making sure that the food is there and there's enough to go around, right? You're not leaving somebody off the food chain, and people take that, right? They definitely feel that if everybody's eating and they haven't, they don't feel appreciated in that environment.
That's right. Yeah.
Basic needs need to be met. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's so important to have sort of, if you're going to run an organization or have a company, to be a servant leader, right? Is to really be a leader in whatever you want your team to do, be willing to do it. And I love the idea you said, Cameron, about rolling up your sleeves and getting in there and doing it as well. And I think the best way to lead is through example, right? Another famous favorite author of mine, I mentioned him already, John Maxwell, right? He says, how do you spell leadership? EXEMPLE. I think I'm spelling it right. Example. No, AM. Yeah, EXAM. My viewers, our audience, our viewers, our community know that I'm dyslexic, learning disabled, so they give me some grace. But yes, example. You spell it through example, and it's the example you set, and if you want somebody to do something, you should be able to do it also. Right.
Yeah, I always say that people are watching, right? Just like children are watching our every move. We have to remember those around us, people we're working with, people who are reporting into us, they're always watching. They're observing how you behave. They're observing your habits. They're observing what you talk about. So they're paying attention, in other words, right? So we have to, if we want to create a healthy work environment, a compassionate work environment, we truly do need to be demonstrating what we expect of others.
Absolutely. I was at a leadership conference not that long ago, and it was a couple that was actually sharing, and they were talking some amazing leadership topics, some things that they've implemented in their organization. And then they shared at the end, just so you know, this came from a children's book on how to raise a kid. And I mean, you mentioned, I know you're a parent. I'm not, but I do know that in being a parent, there's a lot of parallels in leadership in the workplace, right? there's a lot of similarities. And like you said, your employees are watching, your kids are certainly watching, right? Every single thing you do, right? If you can't tell them don't smoke, right? Meanwhile, you go outside and take a drag. You know what I mean?
I learned it from watching you.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Good stuff. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up with a final question here. So we actually got 6 questions. Looks like we got in here. So viewers, community, if you're ready, just type in number 6, and we are gonna have Michelle kind of take us out with some final thoughts here. But Michelle, what are some next steps that you recommend to the audience, right? In terms of compassion, in terms of making a difference, leading change. What are some things that you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, some of the easier things, like we already spoke about, leading by example, normalizing the narrative around mental health and emotional well-being. I think that can make a huge difference. If you're a bigger organization, I am a huge fan of the Employee Resource Group for Mental Health and Emotional Well-Being, because it naturally brings people together to support one another and be hope for one another if they've navigated something, or even if they're caregivers. Many professionals have people at home that they're caring for that weighs on them. So having a community is a wonderful way, and can also help move the needle about elevating compassion and normalizing the narrative. But also owning your own mental health, owning your own mental health, taking care of yourself, knowing what you need to do to preserve your own health is going to have you show up to the best of your ability and organically lead by example.
That's awesome. Well, great stuff. This has been phenomenal.
So I want to just call out everybody to connect with Michelle Dickinson if you have not connected. And all my YouTube folks, right? I have my guy here, Cameron James. Cameron, got to say, great name, Cameron. Cameron James, check it on YouTube. Anybody that's on LinkedIn, make sure you're connecting with Michelle Dickinson on LinkedIn. Get in there. Where else would you like them to go to find you, Michelle?
No, LinkedIn is the best way.
There you go.
I do all kinds of things.
You're on our way page. We're on our same page. We like LinkedIn too.
Yeah.
I think, Michelle, you're also offering a free chapter in your book, right? At breakingintomylife.com, right?
Yeah. If you're interested in the book, breakingintomylife.com, Amazon. If you're interested in a conversation around resilience, that's something I've been doing more and more. Reach out. I'm happy to support you and give you some tips.
Awesome.
Excellent. And I put that into all the chats here, and you can go to www.breakingintomylife.com. Thank you again, Michelle. I'm going to just tell everybody here in the community, we are on next week, same bad time, same bad channel, 1 p.m. next Wednesday, and we will be here with the amazing Sri Mahabir, sharing your journey with video. Very exciting show for anybody that's wanting to do exactly what we're doing here, sharing the journey with video. And then we're going to end the show as we always do. Everybody get ready. We are going to crush it. So, Michelle, we're going to ask you to count down with us, Steve.
Absolutely. Yeah, we end the show. And listen, make sure that this is an uplifting show. It's about compassion. It's about, Michelle, you mentioned it, right? Being a beacon of light for people. So make sure to be that light. And, we want to go out here. It's hump day today. We want to be able to have the half of the week left of the work week. Let's go out and crush it this week. So we're going to count down, and everybody's going to do it with us. And then we're going to shout out. And if you're out there, you could type in crush it when we finish here. So ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Crush it. Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing week. We will see you next week at 1 p.m. again. Stream about the journey through video. Let's get it.
Steve Spiro, you're a mentor, you're a consultant, you're a business owner, but most importantly, you're a host of your own show, and you're also a master connector.
Steve Spiro is one of my idols, and I love listening to everything that he does. He's such a dynamic individual.
Some of the topics I really enjoy speaking on is how to really connect, whether it be in person or through social media. I love to lead with my weaknesses. I lead with, my vulnerabilities. It's fine because I'm okay with who I am. Number 2 is how to go from being inward focused, self-focused, into others focused. Be willing to give and go out there and look to serve. That will attract the right things. Another one is on leveraging LinkedIn to really grow your business. You could reach a lot more people. You could broadcast a message to people that actually consented to want to know you. And then lastly, overcoming big obstacles.
I love sharing. I was a shy, introverted kid, picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic, really in a dark place. I was really in a box, in a shell, and I've been able to break out of that box. And so I love being able to inspire people and really help them. So the Master Connector was born.
The world is my networking event, right? I meet people all the time. My goal is to meet 3 strangers every single day.
Steve is open to meeting you. You should set up a face-to-face with Steve. One little conversation can really change your life.